everybody who's not joining today. I got some excuses, as always. So, welcome today. I'm very happy. I mean, I'm always looking forward to the first Monday in the month, because I think it's a very nice beginning to meet old friends and colleagues and new people, but also sharing a bit of background of their story and having a time for a brief conversation, hopefully aiming at any type of collaboration we could think of. So today we have Cheryl Akner Koler from Sweden, KONSTFACK. I know you from KONSTFACK, but I know you way more from your Back to the Land summer school. That was really an amazing thing for me. I never joined. I joined once in an online crit actually, and I was very impressed about the long-term impact that your work also had on students, and especially also the way you did it in the pandemics. So this is not any longer a project, but you also moved to Gotland, and I think we are in a conversation about how extend that. Let's see.
Let's see.
I think we're all working very long term, so things do not happen today or tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. And we have Anna Maria Orrù, and I think Cheryl, you will introduce her. So thank you very much. So she just asked, can I bring her? Yes, of course. I think if it fits and you know best, it's great to bring anybody or to share the link to listen. And if you have to share sort of your work, I think that's really interesting. And your work in Italy, Anna Maria, sounds super interesting to me, but you will talk about that in a minute. And then we have Lorenzo from BROODMINDER. I was very impressed when we had our first conversation. I mean, I was introduced to you by our common friend, Aguinaldo, who is in the chat.
Hi, I'm here. I'm moving.
I saw you entering, but I don't see. Maybe you're driving a car, so don't show us forbidden things. And I was very impressed about your shift to the profession that you're having right now and the way you're approaching it, that passionate to work with bee as a more than human species and trying to understand the ecosystem from the bee perspective, including the extension of giving information to farmers in terms of predictability. And so I'm looking very much forward to you. So as always, we have around 20+ minutes for the presentation. If you talk longer, we have less time for conversation. Some of you might leave at the full hour because there's lunch break or whatever, or dinner time, wherever you are. But we have max 90 minutes because otherwise it's not feasible. So, Cheryl, the stage is yours, and thank you for joining.
So can I share a screen easily?
Oh, of course, I think allowed to.
Great. Yeah. Okay, great. So, when I wrote this, it was in January, I think, about what I wanted to talk about. So it was really to focus on haptic attributes and how they help kind of simplify collective meal preparation, serving, and socializing during the workshop week in an international course called Back to the Land 2.0. Anna Maria, I'll introduce a little bit later, so that because it makes sense if I kind of wait for that. But John Thackeray was really the one that started this. And he, as you all know, is a design expert and sustainable developer in social innovation and works a lot with food, especially this last couple of years. He started something called X School at KONSTFACK 2014. And then when I inherited the course, then we moved it to another place, to Grititan, which was much more kind of supportive to the ecological reasoning we had. So we changed the name from X School to Back to the Land 2.0, reconnecting urban and rural through food systems. And so that was from 2017 to 2022. And these are just some of the posters we did. And it's part of DEVE, and the process of developing an international course takes a while to develop. So in order to do another one, it has to be connected to a university, and it does connect with, you have to have funding from that university. So it is a little bit of a problem. But the students don't have to pay anything, which is so amazing. John couldn't believe that. So if we can find a university here on Gotland that would support it, which would be Uppsala, that would be wonderful. This is part of where the village is. And it's about 2 hours from Stockholm. And we took a bus to, oh, excuse me. Hope I'm on the right one. Yeah. Yeah. I put a few extra things in here. Okay. I see. Okay, it was a hidden stuff. So when we developed this new place, it was connected with Orrù University, which is a school that has a culinary art school that's really well known, one of the first bachelor programs maybe in the world. And so by connecting to Annika Göran Rodell, who was up in this university, then we managed to find a wonderful place for this. And it was a missions house, which is about 45 minutes from Grythyttan, the university. And in this house, there's a kitchen and a chapel, and a very bad kitchen, very small. So this was like the biggest challenge. How do we manage, if we're going to be talking about food, how do we manage a whole week of people living here? We managed to get places to live, and that was in the camping in the field right across the street from us. So everybody just brought their tent, and it worked out really well. And the people that we worked with there was the family with Ellen and Rudy. So they have a farm and a camping spot, and they were just really amazing people, very, very involved in ecological reasoning. And this is where they are again, away 2 hours from Stockholm. So when they came on Sunday in a bus, then they put up their tent, and then we had a taster dinner. So everyone was just asked to bring some food to share that reflect where you come from and a taste that you enjoy. And then you wrote about the ingredients, and then you paired up and started to mingle. So this is a great way to get everybody to talk about who they are, and then get them to realize that we're not going to cater them. Everyone's going to be working with food during that whole week. And this was our schedule: breakfast at 8:30, and it was simple porridge, and then a lunch, a simple wrap, and then the dinner. It could be 3 to 5 courses. And the food was all purchased before the course, so you could not go buy something unless it was local. And so we had local produced products that were prioritizing local and national food if we could. And then we used a lot of food waste because it was in August, and it was a great time to find a lot of food that we could really develop. And then we brought experts in, and they would sometimes bring food too. And then because I'm from a culinary arts school, or Annika was, and I was a guest teacher there for about 4 years, then we really worked with table setting. So we got to use all of the table setting materials that came from their closets. So we had textiles, tableware, plates, etc., which was really an important part of really giving a good meal experience. We were always looking into textures and substances, which is how we sort of organize food. So we didn't have much time for breakfast. So there's 2 or 3 people that got the whole breakfast together. And we would just have as many different sort of haptic experiences as possible. And I've been working on haptics for about 20 years by now. So this is just the attribute model that I've developed, which start with airflow, in the room, temperature, both in the room and what you can feel, vibration, texture, substance, weight, and then proportions, balance, and contour. All of these are defined in an article we published December 2024 called Developing Haptic Attribute Models as Creative Instruments for a Hybrid Food Community. So this is what it looked like in the morning, and everyone was there on time, which was great. And then we were finished by 9, and we could start. So this is what like a regular day would look like. You start in the morning, you reflect and write in journals. We do some type of introduction. We have lunch, we have open space with the particular interest you're in, and then a time for silence, and then a dinner that was developed the first day, Monday, was developed by the teachers. So by holding space, Annika Göran Rodell has been really instrumental in this. So when everyone comes, they get to really understand like her way of using haptics. And she does the same model with the same presentation, texture, weight, substance, except airflow is at the bottom. And she just does it for awareness and meditation. So you just move your feet on the floor to find the texture. You close your eyes. You think about your weight as you relax into the chair. You think about substance, balance, and then you start to breathe. And then we spend time breathing. And we go through all of these same attributes that were for the hand, were for meditation and for mindfulness. There's John, being mindful. So that was a really important part of how we worked in this 1 week of living together, really understanding like the social body. And then journaling was really important too, so that people really thought about why they came there, what their interests were when they came, what's happening with them as they work together in this collective. But always going back to like at the end of the week, they go home and work on their own sort of interest and find other people that are interested in that same area. And then when John was there, the first time he came to this, then he had just written How to Thrive in the Next Economy. So we chose that to be the theme for the morning. And then we made lunch. And lunch was also super simple, a simple wrap. And everyone it was quite easy to just do your own wrap, depending on what you liked. And then sit and talk. And then after the dinner or the lunch, then you develop this group. You put up your poster about what your interest was, and you find other people that were in it, and then you sit around and talk about what was important for you when you came to this course, and what's going on in your life that others in the group can help you with. And John was really instrumental in that. And so then at the end of the day, then we had a meal. And this is, again, the teachers are doing it the first day in order to show, instead of give instructions, we just showed how to do it. So we started with a little apple juice, and then we served, so people were in silence, and we took like a local taste, which was egg, dried jerky, and some pesto. And we put it on these little stones, gricia stones in bowls. And then we had pumpkin soup and pan bread with pumpkin seeds. And we would serve them in different courses. So first we served that first one where everyone was silent, and then we'd serve them again in a different place. And then at the end, we opened up the window with a little bench out there, and then we just served the main course. And everyone would sit around, find the food that they wanted. And most of the information was not written, but you could find out easily what it was that you needed to avoid if that was the thing. And then this is like the difference between how people can create their food experience. So, and then we would talk about something about what we were talking about while we were producing it. So we would kind of give some type of social background to what we were doing. And then the next day, the same thing. You wake up morning, have breakfast, and then you find out who's going to be the group that's going to take care of the dinner. That's what we have to do early. That was the forest group and the gardening group. And then we had these lectures, and then the whole thing would then end in a beautiful 3 to 5 course dinner. My daughter, Corina, she has a firm called VET. So she was the meal coordinator, curator, sort of from Tuesday to Saturday. So the students were in teams based on what experts they were interested in. And we would try to figure out how to work in that kitchen. Some people would be working outside, some people inside. And then they knew what the ingredients were because you could see them there. And then people just sort of figured out ways to be able to do the dinner within 2 hours because they were busy most of the day with their experts. And they would come back and they would find a theme that was inspired by the expert that they had. And then Korea goes through the haptics, but she's more in food labs. So like how to go from a simple wet sauce to chunky, and then to just slicing, and then drying and powdering. So how to think in those ways. So we didn't really use recipes. We would do this thing called lagom in Sweden. I mean, that everyone gets a taste. So if, for example, you have very little, you just make sure you have very small bowls so that everyone gets a taste, so you don't have to think about measuring too much. And then she would help them understand different things you could do in order to create more haptic experiences. And it worked perfectly because, I mean, if you didn't know how to cook very much, most people were pretty good at cooking. So that was amazing. But if you didn't know how, you could learn how to manage it. And then we've worked on three different haptic attribute models, and one which is really important was the mouth, and the other nose. I won't present that, but the mouth starts with temperature because it's super important about what you put in your mouth. If it's too hot or too cold, and then moisture instead of vibration. Otherwise, they're the same attributes as the hand. And except for the concept of grind, because when you grind something, then the retronasal particles come into the backside of your nose, and then that's where flavor is experienced. So those models were like the research part of this, and it's important when you're doing academic sort of courses that you have some research aspects of it. Magnus Wessling is one of the associate professors at the same school, at the Culinary Arts School, and he's done his PhD in culinary arts and meal science. And his wife, Marta, she's a heritage farmer and a gardening engineer. The two of them started this amazing cafe where the students were allowed to come and find out what they were doing and then create things that had to do with what they were working on. And just at that time, Magnus was working on gray peas. So how to make gray peas in different ways with, waffles or hamburgers or whatever. And then this is also a soup that they made. So they hung out at his place, which was right across the street from us too. And we served things in different ways. So this is like one of the ways to serve beans, gray beans. And this is another way to serve the rest of the dinner so that we would go inside and create a feeling of darkness. 2021 is when COVID started, and this is a poster from 2022. So this is when Anna Maria came. So it was much more it was really important to get a strong structure since we weren't going to meet physically. So Anna Maria gave us a lot of wonderful labs, like this soil lab. And she has her own farm right now, so she was really involved in how to develop good soil. And she also developed this assignment 1, soil to soil, so that they could create these posters. And these are the things that the students came with when they came to the workshop, so that the posters, that's where their interests were, and that's how people could understand where they were going. And then this is about Anna Maria's moment. So if you tell me when to change your slide, Anna Maria, then we can
Thank
go.
you, Cheryl. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Maria Orrù. I'm Cheryl's colleague from KONSTFACK. I also work at KONSTFACK, but I'm also down in the Istituto Europeo di Design in Torino. And 5 of us got together, and this is really on the back of Back to the Land. After our course got cancelled due to some funding, we've been trying to really bring it to back to the farm again, or back to the land. And so before the EAD course, we continued with the farming course through the Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship in Stockholm, which works with KONSTFACK and 5 other universities. And so we started up what they call a boot camp. I'm not so proud of that name, but immersive, let's say, camp down here on the farm. I'll tell you a little bit more about the farm. I'm sitting here we're in Toscana, very close to about 30 minutes from Lucca. And it's an old sharecropping estate, which I can explain a bit more. But what's kind of culminated in these boot camps that started in 2023, when Italy sort of opened up again, has now grown into a master course with EAD Torino, where 5 of us got together. And we wanted to create a design course in social ecological design that was really about regenerative practices for everyday life, with all the complexities that we're dealing with right now. It's an immersive and experimental master's. We really want to go out there in real world contexts, be they growing food, and that's here in Tuscany, be they dealing with people coming and finding new land. We work with migrants down in Sicily. We have the marginal team that works with them. We're 5 faculty that started this. We just launched in November, so I don't have many images yet from the course because we're in our first year of running it. And we work with materiality, really direct engagement sort of with materials, new biomaterials, new ways of sort of working with ecosystems, different, we have lessons in biomimicry. That's one of my backgrounds, nature-inspired design, multi-species thinking, ethnography, creative activism, systems analysis, and all of these kind of, we really wanted this course to embrace all of these important, we thought, what do we want to teach? And all of us sort of put this into a, let's say, Le Guin's carrier bag of theory, and sort of really wanted to create a course that had all of these things that we were passionate about in one master's. And here we are at my Nature Academy, which is really started off as a farm. We're just tenants here. We don't own anything. And so we're bringing it back to this old practice of mezzadria in Italy that, of course, in mid-1970s fell apart, but has been around since the Middle Ages, where this land is owned by a family called Raffo, and they have too much olive groves to tend to, and so we just started with renting this 200-year-old farmhouse, but we are sort of reshaping what it means to be a tenant. And as one day we took a very innocent walk here, we've got about 1 kilometer length from the gate when you come into this area. And a friend who actually makes wine up in Denmark said, wait a minute, aren't those grape leaves kind of jumping up above this sea of bramble? And we thought, yeah, okay. So so the spirit has it that we, and I don't advise this to anybody who doesn't know anything about winemaking, if you see grape leaves, walk away. But we had this bright idea to start up. You can move forward if you like. Sorry, that's the executive of site operations, Cosmos, barking. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
We basically started up a biodynamic vineyard in 2020 during the COVID, and we've been learning how to make biodynamic wine ever since, which is a complete adventure. We work a lot with, things for us that have value is, of course, soil, is about water, and about increasing the biodiversity here. Here we have Zeno from the course working with earth as a building material, and also with reeds as a building material. You can carry on, Cheryl. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We also have, we're also beekeepers, so there were some slides there about beekeeping, but we work with bees since about 10 years, and then we moved into we've done exhibitions. My partner is a poet and an artist, and I'm an architect and a teacher, and so we really try to meld these worlds together of running this farm, but also taking all of the learning that we have here and sharing it with others. And I don't want to rush too much, but yeah, that's us, and you're welcome to contact us. It's just it's a journey, and it's a learning journey all the time, and how to bring this into teaching and how to get the students involved. We run one huge course here per year, which is a summer course, and it lasts about 2 weeks, and that's with the Stockholm universities. And it's incredible how much time it takes just to organize this 2 week period. And then we run courses with the Högskola, which is a Scandinavian kind of, it's not university, but it's not high school. It's kind of this in-between space where you can go and kind of investigate what you might want to do in the future. So we have about 5 different Högskola from mostly Denmark. My partner is Danish, so a lot of them coming down, and we have kind of, depending on what they want to learn about, we have them come here and immerse them in anything from, we've created nature bathing walks, Shinrin-yoku paths. We do beekeeping with them. If they're here during a harvest, we can always use a hand because it's just the 2 of us. So either olive harvests, we're also making olive oil, or the grape harvest. Yeah. Thank you very much. And thanks, Cheryl and Philip.
Yeah.
Letting me slot in here very, very briefly.
Great. Wonderful, Anna Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very impressed, and it's interesting to see how actually you contributed on one project and then set up this very different thing. And thank you for also for bringing up super important topics like redefining what it means to be a tenant, because I think we all using a certain space, but using is a terminology we might overcome. We're not consuming space, a place. Actually, we are guests at that space. Maybe we are temporary hosts. And I think this goes beyond. Before I come up with some questions, I have some. We can have a bit of a conversation. Any questions or comments from other ones in the audience? Not you can think about or put it in the chat. Well, I have one question maybe to both of you, because I think it's really important, and at least that's what I'm thinking of if I'm investigating projects. So you go to a certain place, you are guest at Schulze Village, you are a new tenant without being a tenant, sort of basically you are a meaningful contribution to an ecosystem. Could you maybe comment on what maybe the humans in that context? Is it the farmer? Is it the neighbors? First of all, how they respond to you, and second, maybe how they benefit from your activities. Maybe on a short and on a long term, because very often
Yes.
like the designers are landing like a spaceship and doing crazy things.
Yes,
do you
and
build trust
actually
and
what we do is we connect all of the students, and they're not only designers. We've got from really 6 different transdisciplinary universities. So they might be musicians, they might be doctors from Karolinska, they might be engineers, they might be scientists of some kind. So it's very interesting. It's taken us a really long time to develop a community here but it's through the work that we do. So I'm half Italian and half Polish, and one is Danish, and we found that we're also outsiders, we can say here. We've also found a way in through the farming with other humans here. And of course, most of the human population on this mountain here and the farmers that we are over 80. So it's been also a wonderful sort of channel of old stories and cups of tea and glasses of wine, discussing how things are done today, how things were done before. So we're learning a lot from our neighbors, and it's a way to also learn what they are doing and what used to be here. And we actually know people who were born in this farmhouse 87 years ago. So we get a lot of stories from during the wartime and things like that. Yeah, and then we connect to different small scale farms in the area. I connect the students. They usually work on a project with like small farming entrepreneurship places. And I think a really interesting fact is that the only sector in Italy for under 30-year-olds that is growing is agriculture. Not IT, not fashion. A lot of young people are moving away from big cities and trying to find land to farm on. And their biggest problem is affording land. So that's a really huge problem. And that's where let's say if we revitalize this idea of mezzadria in another way, of course, you have to have a very good land lady, ours is a landlady, to work with, someone who's really passionate about the land and wants to continue it being farmed. But I mean, there are so many abandoned spaces here. So I think we even know somebody from IASPIS in Stockholm, which is the arts kind of council, people who run workshops who are looking for land to try and start up a new mezzadria. And they're going to these abandoned farms and asking, would you like us to tend to your land? And in exchange, we can look after it and make it productive again, or bring biodiversity in, or rewilding and so forth. So it's really interesting what's going on.
Could you translate mezzadria?
Mezzadria is a sharecropping estate.
Sharecropping, okay.
Sharecropping, mezzadria, yeah. Yeah. So it's this wonderful kind of this intertwining between the past and the present and sort of old ways and new ways. And of course, everything is low tech. We work a lot with our hands, not big machinery. You can't really get them up on the mountain where we live. And so it's been also interesting to also learn from our neighbors how they do things without large machinery. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting and really sort of beneficial. I mean, what you said in the beginning to connect the students to the farmers, I think it's really obvious that they can learn a lot. But to me, it's really important also that the people that we bring out, whether they are designers, musicians, artists, architects, that they maybe also have a positive, at least midterm, if not long-term effect in terms of supporting. So listening, what is the community doing? And I understand that maybe one of the approaches that you're having is to really look for opportunities for those that are in need. On the one hand, the younger, the 30, the less than 30, and on the other hand, the empty land or the empty houses, and to bring that together in a new way, and maybe also find new value streams or sort of new ways of
Philip, I can say when it comes to back to the land, we started off with asking people if we could help them.
Yes.
And of course, the students really couldn't get on top of what they needed for help until the last days.
Yeah.
And we did an exhibition. It was okay. But then we realized we should pay them. So we paid them for the hours that they spent preparing and then also taking care of the students. And if they did bring in some materials, if they wanted to be paid for that, it's fine. But they tried to keep to simple things like Magnus and Bart. They decided that the second year you only get potatoes. And then they have 5 different potatoes, and then you get also apples and a few other things. So that in the first time the students were allowed to go out to the whole garden, but that was such a luxury, and they want to serve it on gold plates almost. And so the potato idea was wonderful because it really made you understand haptics, the quality of how you cook the potato makes a difference, and then what you're adding to it, so that you really try to enhance the taste of the potato instead of just make it like in the background. And so now we have a forester who's well known from Stockholm University. She lives up here too, so we pay her. And so they walk into the forest and then get involved. And then we also have a few other people that including the people where they do the tenting. So they sometimes bring in a lamb. It's been controversial to slaughter a lamb and even grill it in a kind of grotesque way. But it was a good discussion. So it kind of every other time it was with or without a lamb.
Interesting. Thank you. Anna Luz, you're raising your virtual hand and you're in our center with the blue sky.
Yes, I'm repotting my plants. Yeah, I have a question that is a bit more specific to the discipline of design. As I understand it, you both have this multidisciplinary approach, and you come as an architect, Anna Maria, and Cheryl as a teacher in a school of design. But I feel like there's sometimes a bit of an imposter syndrome coming from designers to work on those living topics, so to design with the living world. And I'm seeing more and more of a parallel as I'm studying permaculture between design methods and techniques and the permaculture design or the working with the living world. But I just wonder how you approach it, and especially in the summer schools that you're doing or in the programs that you're holding with design students, how do you approach that double-sided?
Right. I think I'll give a short answer because Anna Maria is immersed in it. So I think that's really the most important thing that you really do in your everyday world. And I moved now to an island and I realized just walking going for a walk every day makes a great difference. So we're quite separated from nature if you're living in big cities. So thank God we realized we should engage the people that are living there, and we should pay them because they have the expertise. So we didn't feel like we're trying to be imposters, because we would bring design tools, but we wouldn't have the depth. And with time, we have a design ecologies program at KONSTFACK. So with time, we should be more and more competent. But if you don't live on the land, I think you're missing the whole thing. So Anna Maria, sure.
I'll try to be short. I mean, basically the working question we had with our master course was, how can design actually become a tool for care that fosters a deep and respectful kind of connection to the living world? And so there are very, very different everyday situations that allow you to do that, be it making food or even cooking food. We also, during our courses, we stop for 3 hours in the day, and the groups get separated, and one group goes with, we have a fantastic cook that they actually go and prepare the meal for everybody else. We have a group that goes out and gardens with us. So this year we're working with ideas about designing the Etruscan living trellis, and I found out the Etruscans actually already had the answer to sustainable viticulture of the future, and they basically grew the grapes up in the trees, and they used the trees as a structure. So there's no need for any kind of trellis system or new industrial infrastructure coming into a piece of land, but you actually, so we're gonna use the olive grove and the trees in the olive, so you can see they're really well spaced, to try and grow the grapes in there and then across, and then see what happens. And then what you're doing is you're also increasing the biodiversity by bringing the grapes into the trees. Of course, some of the grapes get eaten by the fantastic birds and worms or whoever lives in those trees, and then we get to keep some as well. And none of this is actually for the produce. We're not a commercialized farm. Everybody's asking us, why are you doing this? And we just thought, well, we're just really curious. First of all, the leaves, the color of the green leaves of the vines are so beautiful. And actually we've got a problem coming at us, which is about 800 liters of wine in August now is going to be made, and we don't know what to do with it, and we're not really supposed to sell or do anything with this wine. So now we're trying to figure out a new way of okay, what do we do with it? Do we give it away? Does it become an art project? Does it, or do we have to commercialize? So that's another layer to all of this work, is that I work a lot with entrepreneurship. So how is a new form of entrepreneurship a new form of value? But Anna-Luz, there's so many things. I mean, you can just look at, okay, how do we collect water? That's a design problem. How do you make that in a beautiful aesthetic and a learning aesthetic, knowledgeable aesthetic, that you gain something from creating these things too. And the students work in teams, and you might have a doctor, you have a scientist, you have a musician, and you have a designer on a team, and you say, okay, can you try and reinforce the irrigation system here, collecting water from the roof, and can you make it look beautiful? Here's 10 days, go ahead, build it. And they kind of have, this kind of 10 days to figure out, how do we do this? How do we build it? Of course, we give them help and all of that. But there's so many situations where design actually is incredibly needed. And I think one of the things with our course is that we don't want people to think that design is about making a chair or a table or a piece of furniture. That's not what only design is about. Also for architecture is not just about intervening and creating a building or a space in that sense. There's so much more that architects can do. And I'm so happy I spent 9 years of my life in architectural education to learn how to draw plans, because they've been very helpful for the vineyard and all the other things that have nothing to do with building buildings or cities. So I mean, there's so many opportunities for design to come in, and I think a lot of our all of these kind of systems that we're dealing with, be it food, be it farming, they all need design, and they all need art. They need an artful approach in them, and of course to inspire people to connect to nature more.
Yeah. And one important thing about the concept of aesthetics is it's not just about making something beautiful. It just is about presenting something in a kind of a physical way that it engages you kind of haptically. That's my thing, but also all your senses. And wherever you are on this sort of journey through complexity. You can always like find a way to zoom in and out and then create something, a map, a prototype, something that people say, okay, we got this far. Because if it's just words, people forget. And you can have written one thing a while ago and then you forget it. But when it becomes physical, it's so easy to share. So my advice is always create as many like really quick and dirty prototypes so that people really understand how it is you're thinking. And then if you're in Anna Maria's situation, you just go out and start digging, and show people what to do.
Yeah, I agree. I was on our side this morning with two artists, and they were always talking about micro interventions. I mean, how can you come up with something that is really showing an opportunity and engaging the people? So maybe a final question from Anna Davis. You were asking that you're doing or having discussions around the so-called field trips. I think it's an ongoing conversation. I can put on the Miro the two links actually on Monte Preti and this summer school, or I can put it in the chat here, or the boot camp. And I hope that Anna, we put her on June 1st, but that doesn't work because your next school starts on June 1st. But you will share your experience soon. But maybe Anna, you're more specific in your question, what you're looking for, Anna Davis? Or?
Yeah, so I mean, one of our challenges is around, I mean, I'm in a geography department, so we're very much around experiential learning, and field trips have long had a prioritized place within the programs, but we're finding it increasingly difficult to run them in terms of costs, in terms of time, with students have lots of competing demands on their time to take out from studies and their work that they use to live. So, I'm interested in the kind of cost implications. You talked a lot about how labor and things are worked together, which is great. And then just related to that, and more specifically food contexts, that there is a campaign within my university with a particular group of people who are seeking to acquire, or they've been gifted a farm. It's about a couple of hours from Trinity, but thinking about how that farm can act as a living laboratory for learning spaces, and also practically operating as a landed kitchen, providing food for community spaces and university potentially, depending on how that goes. So a very different kind of approach, but I saw a lot of commonalities between the things that you were talking about and things that underpin these issues. So it was really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want me to answer a question about the funding?
Well, yeah, you could if you, I mean, you did address it a little bit, but if there were any insights, magical steps.
My biggest dream is also to bring together all of us who want to start these kind of nature academies out there that are out there outside of the institutional walls. No offense to people who are sitting inside the institutions right now, but also we have ties to institutions as well, and that's the thing that's really worked here, is that some of that funding has coming from institutions. One very strange funding track that is quite bizarre and is I've been working together with the Swedish consulate here, and they have given us patronage, no money. So patronage means that they showcase us as somebody who's bringing together Sweden together with Italy. And then they go out and they contact, this is so nice, somebody does this for you. They go out and they put us in touch with different kind of already more functioning farms that are actually working, that are spaces that have a larger capacity of money for funding also smaller programs. And then we bring our students to them. They might give us a day on their farm with food and learning about, we went to a biodynamic farm once. Another time we went to a biogas plant that also grows different kinds of crops. So it's very interesting also learning for the students to go out to these other farms that are commercial. Not more commercial, but are commercial. And then because of the academic year, it doesn't suit Sweden, our bootcamp course. So we have to put it in the beginning of summer when they end their academic year. But our course, the IED Torino, is continuing onwards into February. So there's no break in our master course. And so basically I also got some funding from Torino this is part of their course. So we bring IED Torino students together with these students that are coming down from Sweden. Every year you have to find the money, and it is struggling. I mean, it's a lot of months. You start in August, you finish the course, you have a break, July, August, and then in September you go start looking for money for next year. So it is. I mean, you can't. There are other functioning things like the new Bauhaus, the new European Bauhaus that have this competition yearly. I think it's very soon now. So some of you, we applied 1 year. We got selected into the finalists. Our course got selected. We unfortunately didn't win, but that's 30,000 euros right there. You've got the Lerici Foundation, but it's very specific to Sweden and Italy. We got that 1 year, and then once you get it once, you can't reapply. And so there's all these smaller funds, but I mean, why we should put our heads together and share, I mean, open source all of this stuff that we're learning. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much.
If you're in the universities, Erasmus is also a possibility to take away the cost for the students. And then by doing that, you can also have it for a number of years. So then you have to only get the money for the time for the teachers. And that's a lot less money than trying to cover the cost of the students, because we have to cover the cost of the students in the university. And it was like 200,000 crowns to drive that course. And John, because of his name, he was an important part of that. So he's gotten paid well. And then all of the other teachers too. So it's like, okay, how can we manage this? So by them like living in tents, that's great. And by buying food in the most cheap way you could possibly have. And then it only cost us 5,000 crowns for that whole week to have that missions house. And it even had a bathroom in it. So it's like, if you can find a good place to do things and then get the students' payment out of the budget, then that's an easier way.
I think this opens up really a lot of conversations, and this is one of the reasons that also brought us together. I think, what are we doing? What are we sharing? We can share practices, but also ideas, and maybe create a network that is beneficial for many of us. And I think last year there have been potential horizon calls where we could come together as a network of living labs or something like that. So maybe we should one day dedicate a session to that, or come to a wonderful place like to your wonderful place in Italy or wherever, and discuss this. But I want right now to move to Lorenzo. I don't know when you have to leave. But at least to give you the fair opportunity to share what you maybe prepared and what could be super relevant for us, and have time for some conversation as well. I put this time some of the question conversation to the Miro board to populate it a bit. So and as well, of course, there will be the lectures or the talks and the conversations available. So Lorenzo, keen to hear from you now.
Okay, let's move on this. We will talk about bees now.
Yes.
A lot about bees. So let me share some slides. Where's this? No, desktop. No,
yes.
It's not this one. Maybe not this one. It's the other one.
Okay.
Now you're seeing it right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So at BROODMINDER, every hive counts, and this is a very particular presentation. I've never done that before because the audience is completely different from what I am used to have. I've made a collection of things, of projects, of tools, of events, whatever, and I will show them to you. I think I've succeeded doing a presentation with no text nearly at all. It's just pictures. And I hope it will interest you, or some things can, I don't know, raise some ideas. You will let me know at the end. Well, how is moving this? Okay, so I am Lorenzo. I am at BROODMINDER in Europe. We are a global team with people in North America and people in Europe. We have been joined all together because since 2015, Rich Morris started in the US in 15. I started here in France in 17. And then we met together on the internet and started building this thing. that has become the BROODMINDER team. And we all have one vision, which is, okay, let's talk the data to understand what's happening with the bees. And this is not new because, as you know, this guy, a very well-known guy in the industry, said, okay, without data, you're just another person with another opinion, right? The sharing of what we are doing is in our ADN, and from the very beginning, we created becounted.org, which is sort of a platform where our users can share their hive data. There's no personal data there, it's just the hive data. And so the customers are all around the world, and mainly in North America and Europe, but also in Australia, in Japan, and a little bit in South America, because this idea is growing and the product is getting more and more mature. So just for the history, I am just here now because Aguinaldo from Brazil is also a beekeeper and was working with local communities there, and that's how he knew about us, because they wanted to monitor bees. And then we started talking with Aguinaldo, became friends, and then Aguinaldo talked about Philip, and that's how it goes, right? So, and that's what's really fun for me. I am Spanish, by the way, originally. I'm living in France since 25 years, 26 years. And yeah, I like this. Sharing data also in the Pollinator Hub. This is a EU initiative that wants to collect data from different stakeholders and different sources, right? And getting actual data for the same thing I was saying before. If you want to go to European Commission and tell them, hey, we would like to have healthy ecosystems, and because of this and this and this, right? Because we have data and we can tell you. So we are sharing, our users can decide to share their data with this hub. We've also been working on this, we call it educational dashboards. Okay, I don't know anything about bees, but I would like to understand it like a kid in primary school, right? Or whatever. So how can we make it easy, affordable, and easy to access? And we've created those dashboards, which is the very, very high level of the whole system. The whole system can be very technical, but if you go at the very high level, trying to make it as simple as possible, as affordable as possible, this is part of it. And also on the data sharing topic, people can share data among their fellows, other beekeepers. We offer very different ways to share data. This is an apiary in the northern Spain. We've been working on that one for queen breeding, and we will talk about that in a few slides. It's just a break after the sharing section, okay? Now, just to give you a flavor of how we measure things, because it's just good to know how we do it. We have internal sensors that go into the hive. It's a temperature sensor. It's like measuring your own body temperature. The bees are thermoregulating the hive, not for the same reasons as we do, because the bees are not a warm blood insect, but they need to warm their babies. So when the bees are when the queen is laying and producing brood, you know that the temperature has to be high, about 35 Celsius to raise that brood. So that's the very first sensor. We also have scales. We're measuring the weight, because when there is a nectar flow or the resource consumption, a beehive is a super organism. So it's going much faster up and much faster down than any normal organism, human or any animal or any cattle. This is going exponential one direction or the other. So measuring real time is really useful. And on top of it, this is in a box. So if you look to your dog and you can say if it's good or it's bad, but when you look to your box, it's a bit harder. We are also measuring forager activity. This is a radar. It's sitting in front of the hive and is counting the bees going through the hive. It's not able to count how many came in and how many came out. It's more like in a river measuring the water flow, right? What's the overall activity? And this is a product that we are working very hard those days. Is a camera. We call it BTV, and you can do many different things with this. The original idea was to count mites. Mites is something I will show you in a few slides. Is one of the parasites of the bees, varroa mites. But we can also count eggs. We can also count bees. We can count many different things with this camera. And then, so you've seen the 3-4 devices: internal sensor, scales, the radar, and the camera. And all those devices need to send the data in real time to the beekeeper, to the cloud. And we have several hubs. You can think it as a router that will collect data from all the devices and just push it to the cloud. And then when we are at the cloud, we want to process that data, right? We have on the coming slides, I will talk to you about what is the raw data on the left side and what we do with it, and we convert it on the right side. Okay. So on the left here, you have the weather forecast, and on the right side, we compute something that is called nectar flow index, and it's telling you about the suitability of the environment to produce nectar flow, right? And this black line is today, and then you have a forecast. You have the perspective of how things are showing up in the next 10 days, let's say. So you just take a snapshot with your eyes to this chart, and that's all you need with the weather. You don't need to go through many different websites or whatever, just this, and you know how it's showing up for the next days. The internal temperature sensor I shown you before is measuring, of course, temperature, but we convert it into quantity of brood inside the hive. So you know if the brood is going up or the brood is going down. There's no brood during the winter. So that's important. It's giving you the strength of the hive. On the weight side, the scale is measuring weight, and then we compute productivity, which is the net work of the bees. So you don't care about if someone added a super or fed or whatever extra weight appeared there. We are removing all those interventions and we are keeping just the work of the bees. And so you're seeing if they are storing resources or consuming them. In this case, is a positive productivity, so they are storing. And they are not storing every day. Maybe they are storing 2 or 3 weeks over 1 year, because people think that they are bringing nectar all the time, it can be true, but from there to store it in quantity, it's just happening when you have a strong nectar flow. And then from the radar, we have the overall bees activity, and we convert it into forager trips per day. So it gives you an idea, 120,000 forager trips per day, okay, which is a huge amount of travel. They are doing a lot. And of course, there's a relationship between the brood quantity and the resources they brought and the forager trips on every hive, because there you get the full picture when you combine all those metrics together. We are also tracking the plants in the environment. This is a bit new. We started developing this 4 years ago, and we deployed it last year. So the idea is that we have a blooming calendar, and we can forecast when this bloom will happen. Okay, and this is very, very much depending on the weather, and every year changes a little bit. And with global warming and so on, the changes are more and more important. So what you see here is that we can track, the user can track 6 different phenological stages of the plants. So from the bud burst down to the end of the flowering. And so you enter the dates here. And then behind it, there's a model that will be built with that data, with that input, which we call phenocast. And that's the model that will forecast the blooming on this year, right, on the current year. The more inputs it has, the better, the most accurate it will forecast. And so here you can have a full blooming calendar, what's blooming over time, and when it started, when it was full bloom, and when it ended. Well, it started to bloom because then here you have the bud burst. So this gives you it's like a map, right? What's happening now, what will happen in 1 month or in 6 weeks, so that you can figure out what you're navigating. And changing to another topic, this is managing the queen. Inside the boxes, there's a lot of things happening. And in spring, queens are changing. So you have swarms, the old queen is leaving, the new ones are arriving. So in the apiary, you have a big mess. Every hive can be different. So this is a tool that we are developing and started to use last year about, okay, can I manage what's going on, or at least understand what stage every hive is. And so, for example, this hive, R1, swarmed in May, and then reswarmed again, and then I introduced a new queen, and so I had to make 2 attempts until the 3rd one worked, and I could requeen the hive, right? R2 also had 2 attempts, and the 3rd one worked. R3 got 1 attempt, R4 worked from the very first time, and the other ones worked for the very first time. So you are working here with a lot of math, because the queen leaves, and then you need a few days until the next queen arrives, and then it's still virgin, and it has to be mated, and once it's mated, it can start laying. So this is going over the calendar for a few weeks. And so here, that's a little bit of the process I was telling you. You're going from the egg, larva, pupa, all the process until you have a mated queen and a stable colony back again, which is what you succeed here. And those cycles can be more or less longer, the mating, for example, depending on the weather. So you are combining, again, things together. Because if the weather is bad, the queen cannot get out for mating flight. So now we'll talk about breeding. Not because of breeding, but just to give you a flavor of what the tools are applied for. So we need some bees, some beekeepers. This is a drone frame. And so what we are willing to know is when the first drones are arriving, because you cannot breed queens if you don't have drone males to make the mating flight, right? So this is a drone comb. The cells are a little bit bigger than the normal combs. And so the bottom is on plastic, and then they add the wax and they extrude it. And then we have this camera, and the idea is that the camera watches inside the hive how they build the comb. So start from the plastic ground and then start adding wax until you see the first egg of a drone, which is here. And that happened in March 7th, okay? Here we have a zoom in view. So we are trying to see this grain of rice, which is really small, to trigger everything, right? Of course, we use an AI model. We are learning the AI model. What is a cell? What is a drone, an egg? What is a larva? were explaining the system. And then he finds it himself. Say, okay, this is a cell, this is a cell, this is a cell. All the blue ones are cells, and here I'm seeing a larva. Okay, and this is capped, so that's a capped cell, and the other ones are open. And here I'm seeing larvas again, and here I'm seeing an egg, right? And so the pictures are interesting, but what we really want is a system that will warn us when this happens. And so here is the cell counting over time. Numbers change because you have bees in front, so you don't see everything all the time because the bees are moving around. But you're counting cells. And then here you're counting eggs, and that's where the detection happened, right? In July, about July 2, July 3. And that's all what we wanted to have. And then after this, you know, when the larvae are appearing and where the cells are kept. So this is very preliminary data. We got it last year. It's in a research project, but it gives an idea of how we could really understand what's going on without opening all the time. And so now this was for breeding. Now we will talk about fighting threats. There's a few threats. This part was yesterday, I got it on the final part of the presentation, but I wanted to end up with a more optimistic aspect, so I move it a little bit up. So the major threat, one of the majors is the varroa mite. If you have never seen it, is this thing. It's like a big, a big mite that is just grabbing to the bee and also into the brood. And so they are moving on the bees. One is here, one is there. So we are trying to count them, and they grow exponential. So if you have 1, 2, 3 right now in this season, you will have 3,000 in 2 months, and they will kill the colony. So that's critical. You need really to take care of it. So you can do some treatments, either classical or, let's say, biological, but you need to get rid of them. The other threat is the yellow-legged hornet that is adding a lot of pressure onto the beehives, and it arrived to France in 2004, and it's been growing over time and expanding through all the Western Europe countries, right? My hive literally is to 2 months lockdown last autumn because of this. They cannot get out. And if they get out, it happens what you see in the picture. So the pressure is huge. And then there's some other threats that have not yet arrived into Western Europe, but that are very dangerous. This one is called Tropilipes, which is like a cousin of the mite we've seen before, but even much more hard and harsh to deal with. And that is a small beetle. So the Tropilipes is doing this. It's just eating on the brood. And the beetle is, well, doing all those worms and into the hive, which is a crazy thing to deal with. So this has not yet arrived, but there's high risk, and we have to be very careful to avoid this coming here. And this last topic I want to talk, and maybe the one that is more related to food, is pollination. So we bring bees, if you have never seen it, we bring bees to pollinate to many, many different crops. And in quantities, okay? When we say bees pollinate, people think, oh, there's a bee just around the tree and does the pollination. No, we are bringing a bunch of hives and we are really putting what is needed to get the pollination. This picture is on a kiwi orchard. Kiwis are dependent at 95% on bees pollination, bees or bumblebees. So here we understand what's going on, go back with the radar, forager activity we've seen before, so trying to measure what's going on every day. This is on almonds. This is in California. So almonds is a bit tricky because it's in February, just right now, by the way. And so it's a bit cold. You want the bees to pollinate, but the bees are not willing to go out if it's too cold. So trying to understand what's going on and yeah, managing the thing. Here we were trying to understand at what time in the morning they were getting out, and under particular feedings, if they were stronger, if they were feeling better to pollinate. This is on sunflower. So here again, there's 35 hives maybe there to pollinate this sunflower crop. And you see the bees here on top of the picture. They are really, really moving around. This is another kind of pollination. This is in a greenhouse because we are producing seeds. So it's not for consumption. It's a seed production. So you have the male and the female, and you want just the pollen to move from the male flower to the female flower, right? And what happens here is that the bees are in a very narrow place, and there's not huge amount of resources there, so you're feeding them. And here we were comparing what happens if you feed them with just sugar, which is the pink one, or if you feed them with sugar and proteins, and this is the brood, by the way, with sugar and proteins, and they are stronger, longer time, and then you see there's no graph here, but you see the results on the pollination activity with the bee counter. Here we were assessing the behavior of the bees on that's onions. So we have the camera, that's what you see there. And we have also the radars in the hive, and we are measuring the activity. Okay, how many bees are getting out of the hives? How many bees are visiting the flowers during the day and during the night? But there's no bees at night. And then we got the camera up. Let's see if it works. Taking one picture every hour, let's say. So when it's dark like this, it's during night. And when it's red, it's during the day. And at a certain point, you see some pollinators coming here. In this greenhouse, there was not just bees, there were syrphids and flies. So we could see maybe more flies than bees. And understanding this is important because the onion flower is very special. It's starting with male flowers that will pollinate some other plant around, and then it will continue with female flowers on the same floral. I don't remember the name of this, but on this one, the one you see, it will open the male first and the female after the males are faded. And yeah, here you see some flies going around. And it's moving a little bit during the night, right? Which is amazing. And another thing we did with onions is trying to figure out how the irrigation is impacting the pollination, or let's say the irrigation is impacting the nectar production, which is impacting the attractivity for bees. So that's the process, right? And we had 3 different greenhouses with, let's say, normal irrigation, a little bit below the minus irrigation and plus irrigation, and comparing the 3 situations, figuring out what is the optimum, because there's no point into adding water if it's not needed. And that's the last slide, and then we say that every hive counts. So any question, happy to answer.
Thank you, Lorenzo. That's really, really impressive to deep dive that far into the beehives and to see sort of which data you're monitoring and what you're basically doing with the data. That's really, really interesting. It's super rich. Any comments from bee-related
Beekeeper.
bee lovers? Yes, beekeepers, of course. Yeah, Anna?
Ciao. Thank you, Lorenzo. Very interesting. I'm very curious about this monitoring equipment. We've been thinking about putting it in our apiary, but does it require electricity? Because I think I saw that you have a Wi-Fi link there to it, and then of course you have to bring the data. But so is it all Bluetooth? Do you have to have Wi-Fi that reaches that far to the apiary? Otherwise, it won't work, right?
Well, there's a router which is Wi-Fi, but there's another which is cellular. So the cellular one you can literally put wherever you have cellular coverage.
All right. And the phenocast, is that also attached to the hive, or where does that go for that data, or is that just software?
So it's in the platforms. So what's happening with the phenocast does not need any device, right? It's just a tool. And so you define where your apiary is, the coordinates. This will give you the weather conditions at that position, but we use a weather system. And then you enter your particular blooming or different phenostages you're observing in that place. And then the system will build that model and will assess the next stages over time.
I'm also curious about the threats, because one of my questions was the velutina. When are you going to start talking about the Vespa velutina? Because that's huge around here. And it came to France first, and now it's spreading here into the Mediterranean. And we've started up a task force because the governments are really much, much too slow in responding to this. And I think in France, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, over 50% of beekeepers have really been affected by this. I mean, we're watching our bees. They're just afraid to come outside. How do you, with the data that you have, and of course these threat systems, is there some kind of a task force that if you see that Varroa is growing too much, or that the velutina is growing too much, or I don't know if your systems monitor this, is there some kind of a task force that you work with that then has a response or has some kind of implementation to help? Or
that's a very good question. We are not there yet. Yeah. I hope we will start measuring Varroa pretty soon and have this idea of how it progresses, right? Because you can do inspections, but it will be one every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So it's very time consuming and labor and so on. If you have an automated system, you start being able to even understand what's going on beyond having one data point every day. And that's the beginning of finding solutions, right? Understanding what's happening. On the velutina, we are working also on that, on trying to have an early detection, and then relate it to a decision tool that will tell, okay, this pressure is affordable or that pressure is not. But we're not there yet. Yeah, this needs.
It's very difficult because I don't know if I can say this, and I know this stays between all of us, but we have a bit of a rogue task force here because we're just not getting enough help from the government to deal with this issue. And we've been monitoring the velutina for the last 10 years, and it's not sophisticated like your monitoring system. It's literally all of us who are beekeepers have gotten together into a WhatsApp, and every time we spot a nest, they're usually like 11 meters above the ground, really high to get to. We have a task force that goes out there, and this is what France was doing, and it wasn't working. And now there's research saying that this does not work, but they continue to do this, is that they usually inject poison into the underneath of the hive so that they, of course, they kill the whole colony, but the problem is the knockoff effects on the rest of biodiversity, the birds that come off and feed off the dead larva and all of that. So that there's no really found solutions yet on how to deal with the spread of this. And I'm just wondering, climate change as a threat, which wasn't listed in your and especially the phenocast, I imagine you're getting data in, and the more it works and collects data, you're seeing that these patterns aren't the same anymore. Our flowering seasons are really shifting. We might have acacia that's flowering here, but there's no nectar because it's not 18 degrees Celsius and it doesn't, the flowers don't warm up. So how are you, let's say the information that you're gathering with the different, sorry about all these questions, but it's so interesting. And with all the information that you're gathering from the blooming and the shifts, and is any of that been collected in some kind of way? Or
well, if you're meaning, so phenocast started because of that, because the blooming is never happening at the same period of the year, like maybe before. I mean, it's never started exactly the same day, but let's say that the spread or the variability has been expanding very much over the last years, right? Because of global warming. So we started phenocast because of that, to give advice to the beekeeper of, okay, when are we seeing it? Mm-hmm. And then the important part is that you want to check with the weather conditions, because you can have a bloom, but if the weather is bad, the resources won't be achievable for the bees. Mm. And that's one of the main threats for the bees, because of global warming, is the variability. Because maybe one blooming period that before was lasting 2 weeks and a half, right now will last 1 week and a half, because it gets too hot and the flowers are just burnt after this period, or because it gets too cold, or it's raining, or it's windy. So this variability is what makes that the bees have less resources available than they had in the past, right?
Yeah.
And that's also what makes that beekeepers are feeding bees a lot, and they were not feeding bees 10 or 15 years ago.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lorenzo. And thank you so much for the most wonderful sentence I've heard in a very long time. The suitability of the environment. So beautiful. I've never heard us talking about nectar flow in this way. Thank you so much.
The suitability, that's really a new capacity. Yeah, thank you. I'm curious about the plant monitoring, how you're doing that, and sort of how many data points you're having that, because we are planning that with human sensors, namely school kids. And I think so there we can do way more things, data points that are maybe useful or not. So how do you get that? Is this through images and then through the analysis of images, or?
So just to give you, we started with 3 or 4 beekeepers around France, and on a WhatsApp, like Anna was saying, and monitoring their apiaries. And they were sending us data. The pictures are important because the understanding of what is 10% bloom can be a bit different between you and me and someone else. So it's good to have pictures. But then to build a model, the only thing you need is 3 blooming dates. So let's say 20, 25, 24, 23. And with this, you can also already create a model. Then if you enter more data, other phenological stages, well, it gets more and more robust. But you don't need that much more.
Okay. Super interesting. Another question.
Jonathan has a question, I think.
Oh, yeah, Jonathan. Yeah, please.
Hi, Lorenzo, and thanks also to the previous presentations as well. It's really, really great to see. Some years ago, and continuing, but in a different way, I worked with a group called Open Source Beehives.
I know.
And it turned into a company called OS Beehives, which is since shut down, but the open source parts still remain. I wondered if you found any differences between different types of hive. I'd worked a bit with the Ware hive and the Kenyan top bar hive. They're quite different in operation, and I wondered if you'd seen any differences between different hive types or apiary methods.
Well, sure. Every hive is different, and it depends also on the region you're living, and if it's very to the north or more in the Mediterranean. In general, so there's an awareness that is establishing over the last years. Let's say it's that the bees should be kept warmer than we keep them. And so there's a lot of work on insulation. And even when you use the sensors and you put the sensors inside the hive, you realize how cold it could be or how hot it comes if it's just during summer and it's very hot. And very often some customers are calling me, they just get the sensors and then 1 week after, hey, the sensor is not working because it's telling me it's 6 degrees inside the hive and this is not the case. Yes, it is. So yeah, people are going to insulate more and more, and it's good for the bees because you're stressing them otherwise.
Thanks. It's super interesting. I'm really looking forward to talking more in the future about these things. It's great work that you're doing and difficult as well. Messy.
Yeah, we know you know it too, I think. So
great. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I have a very last question. We have a few people here right now. Just could you comment on the dashboards? Because I think the dashboards are, in my understanding, the transformation of data into information.
yes.
That could either inform or educate or attract people for the project, or could be used for you to investigate topics as a method of inquiry. And I guess the dashboards are more like, I think you once said, maybe also for a sponsor who's giving you some sort of funding to create a certain evidence of what's going on. What do you think is the main purpose that those dashboards are for?
Okay, I think this is a very good question, and it will make the link with the people that what you're doing. And it started with Aguinaldo a little bit, but the dashboards, the main idea behind the dashboard is to make it affordable to anyone, right? Mm-hmm. And we're putting those charts and trying to make some schematics and so on. But we have not yet achieved that purpose, I believe. Mm-hmm. We have been trying, we have been testing. I started with a company in Toulouse that was renting hives to insurances or to banks or people like this. Can you build us this tool? Okay, we can. But I'd like to go, because I've done some IDEO training and learning about design and some MOOCs about this, and say, okay, we need to engage very, very quickly with the final user to understand what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you put the dashboard, even the prototype 0, into this lobby of the bank, and I will go there to the bank and I will spend all my morning sitting there and seeing what happens. And unfortunately, this didn't work because we didn't foresee that installing an IT tool into a bank or an insurance from the IT perspective is a nightmare.
Very dangerous.
So we kept developing the tool from the engineering side, and we couldn't make the design part of it, right? The design from the UX, the user experience, not the design of the web page. This is not a problem. And we are still into this part. Okay. How should we display this? How should we make it so that people really engage with it and understand it and yeah, it's beneficial, right? So yeah, but we are engineers, so it's very, very limited from that point of view.
Yeah, but I think you also know a lot about the people you're working with. And I think the needs of a school class is very different, because I think you need to give a framework for them to raise curiosity and maybe also relate to some curriculum materials that they might have in comparison to a bank that maybe in the end they don't want to be educated. Maybe they want to show off, or they want to be greenwashed or whatever. But however, maybe we can be a bit subversive and put our message in there as well to really make them more interested. And of course, I think it's basically you're monitoring biodiversity as well through what you're doing, and those activities, what I think is really, really interesting. I'm walking here with a colleague that did his habilitation on ecosystem performance and how to measure it. And I'm in particular interested how we can have, and I think I've been stretching that point in one of the previous sessions with technological, human, and more than human sensors, because we have people that can count something or that can observe. We have sensors, but we also have indicators in the ecosystem, plants and species that give something like that. And to show this complexity might be super interesting. But of course, the dashboard is one very relevant part of that might open some doors and might raise curiosity and interest for other people.
It is a vector, and the question is how it can be really, really like something that is hitting you, right? Like an arrow. It touched me.
Straight to the heart.
Straight to the heart.
Isn't that something that it seems like you observe these bees like in the heart of their world, and yet you're not observing your users with the same sensitivities. So it seems like you have the methodology. It's just that you're not using it on trying to understand what your users are doing. And you can always use like speculative design, put it in a contrast situation where you get kind of people to think outside the box, so that, and then if you do have a good engineering background, just to make functioning prototypes so you can place things in different places and get some type of feedback so people get engaged. And then just, of course, engaging design students is a nice way. So you should be able to do that. That can't be a problem because you really have the understanding of the bees on that level. You might be able to get that. And Anna Maria can help. She's a great designer. Okay.
And having both skills, designer and beekeeping, is maybe something very good.
Yeah. I mean, she brought a beautiful Japanese beehive and brought it back with her. It was made out of wood, really beautiful. So I mean, in a way, just to get so much more focus on beehives, it's interesting. By just being around Anna Maria, it becomes like an everyday thing. But most people don't really think about it, which is sad, which is so it is for much of nature. We just take so much for granted. Yeah. See what happens. Good luck.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for today's presentations and conversations. I think there are really a lot of sort of reference points and touch points. And I think what you've been addressing today, Anna, is also really interesting. This sort of type of, rural sites, you said academic sites, but not really academic sites, that are connected. And of course, the financial thing is an issue, and really how to connect and relate on a long-term perspective with the people in that environment is really interesting. So next time we will hear a bit from Jonathan, and I think you also put yourself in the middle of a wonderful ecological sort of context, actually, that might become increasingly relevant also for the academic partner you are working with. So I'm curious to hear more about your topic next time, and we will also have Sophia Nemeth from Hungary on, and that is really interesting what they are doing in Budapest at MOMI, a very multi-level approach. So this will happen on March 30, very easy, last day of March, not first Monday, because this will be Easter Monday, as I learned, and some people told me they want to do something else than sitting in front of a screen. So thank you for sitting in front of the screen today. And I hope all of us will have the opportunity to meet one day, because seeing your charts, Cheryl, really made so obvious how important it is to gather and have food and talk and come to ideas and build lasting relationships. However, this is a first step. And I want to thank you
Thank
for your
you. Thank
contribution.
you, Philip. So nice
And
to bring
see you
these things
again in a
together.
month, and some of
Okay,
us maybe earlier.
great. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Ciao.
Ciao,
Bye-bye.
Thank
ciao.
Ciao.